you talk about having 3 waves of online education.
That's right.
What are they?
So I would argue that we're in the 3rd wave. The first wave was for-profit education. And we thought way back in 2008 the technology was there to do something great. But the story of 2U is really the story of institutional will, of a great university being willing to effectively end the segregation of the online environment, end the segregation of the online student, make them equal to the campus student. That means the same rights and therefore the same responsibilities. It's the same admissions criteria. And 2U does all of the marketing for the schools. So that's actually quite complicated from a business standpoint. Then we got to the 2nd wave. So if we went from for-profit to the 2nd wave, I would argue, which was a bit more of a toe in the water. Now, the world was pretty obsessed with it for a while. It was called the Massive Open Online Course. And we were around during this whole time period. And very candidly, we really couldn't get the time of day because we were behind the scenes. But the massive online courses clearly have value to the world. But I would argue we're a bit more of a toe in the water than the university offering its full experience to a student, whether it be a degree program or an individual course. So it's my belief that we're in the 3rd wave, which is the great schools. The reality is when people talk about, oh, the sleeping giants are starting to wake up, no, they're awake.
What about K-12? I did a piece earlier this year on personalized education. It seems something that Silicon Valley and especially Mark Zuckerberg's very interested in. What do you think the opportunities are there?
Well, I mean, what's crazy about, from an ed tech standpoint, we were a tough IPO. Why? So we IPO'd 4 years ago, and it's gone great. I mean, we've done very well as a public company, but getting public was tough. Ed tech does not have that many success stories, unfortunately. And what's strange about that is that the percent of GDP that goes to education worldwide and how few large companies there are is strange. Regulated markets, very difficult. And one of the things I would say, K-12, we're in higher ed, we've chosen to be in higher ed, and we love the market, and we think we have a long runway in higher ed. So we're not in K-12. But I ran Hooked on Phonics before this. And before that, I produced a PBS television show that was called Standard Deviance. It was middle school, high school, college courses taught by comedians, including a bunch of people that are now famous celebrities. Kerry Washington, Mike Birbiglia, TJ Miller from Silicon Valley. So they were all in my show. So I lived K-12. Well, it was a great show. The show was great, but ultimately the business failed. So that's a whole story. But the fact is, K-12, we think there is huge value. And what I would say to the people in the audience that are startup founders or people that are listening is tackle the big problems. Like there's too many people in ed tech that are going after, that end up creating a feature and not a company. Like there are big problems. So I give the companies in K-12 that are going after the big problems, or what Mark Zuckerberg is doing. So like the head of the Chan Zuckerberg education side is Jim Shelton, who actually was a 2U employee, believe it or not, and is a good friend of mine. I had dinner with him last night. Like, go after those really big problems because we need it for the world.
All right, well, fantastic. Thank you so much for joining me.